Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the Lost One podcast. I am Shenzo the Lost. Joining me today is Shoshima 1016.
Hello.
So, unfortunately, we were trying to get Samurai to join us, but we think he was either having some internet connection issues. Something was up because basically every time he was speaking in our Discord call, uh, he was getting like this weird like clicking, and then at the end, even he was
static even. So.
Yeah, so it just wasn't good for podcast quality. So he graciously bowed out. So Samurai, thank you. Despite the many jokes we'll probably make on you, since you're not here to defend yourself.
Hooray, technology!
Yeah, but yeah, and also joining me, I guess I shouldn't be rude. You can see the very top of Tanner's head and his nose. My big boy Tanner is joining us here because he's a needy boy and he wants to hang out with us. So yeah, there we go. So, topic for today is we're going to resume the Lost in the MCU series we started with Iron Man 2 weeks ago. And we will be continuing that journey by talking about The Incredible Hulk today. Once again, for those that are just watching or did not see the Iron Man episode or did not listen to it, we're not going to do a full-on movie review here. That's not what we're here for. We're not movie critics. Honestly, I know very little about film, aside from, I go in, I either like it or I don't, and that's about it.
You watch it.
Yeah, I know what I like, and that's about the extent of my...
Sometimes I learn stuff I didn't know I liked.
Yeah, right?
Depending on the movie.
Yeah, so speaking of movies, I saw Jurassic World Dominion last night, and...
Yes.
Yeah, no spoilers, but in my opinion, it's the best of the Chris Pratt trilogy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it.
Yeah.
At least compared to the Chris Pratt trilogy.
Yeah, I liked it better than Jurassic World. And don't get me wrong, I like Jurassic World a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked it probably the most.
Okay.
And, I'm not going to go into detail, but, they did bring back the original cast from Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I mean, that's all in trailers.
Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and, of course, Jeff Goldblum.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fun. It was a good ride. They did a good job, I think, balancing like the two acts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's dinosaurs. Like, it's dinosaurs and it's an action movie.
What more do you need?
Yeah, exactly. Like, just don't go in with like any like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be like the greatest story ever expectations, and you won't be disappointed.
Oh, I liked the second one, how they were turning it into Dino Crisis.
Yeah,
That
right.
was
Dino
great,
Crisis.
the second one.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the second movie.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I just thought it was kind of interesting, the
Oh,
Resident Evil / Dino Crisis vibe you got toward the end of that movie.
yeah, it was. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's not a bad movie. Like, I enjoy all the Jurassic Park films. But
they're fun rides. They're blockbusters.
yeah, but for me, what is that? Is that Fallen Kingdom? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Fallen Kingdom is, in my opinion, the worst Jurassic Park film.
Mm-hmm. I'm not disagreeing. I just
Yeah.
thought I liked the vibes it gave.
Yeah, like, and don't get me wrong, the worst Jurassic Park film is still a good movie, in my opinion.
Just like the worst Cars film is still what, an 87?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a matter of opinion. But anyway, yeah, if you haven't seen it, please go check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. By the time this release, I think the movie might not even be in theaters anymore. But still,
Probably.
yeah, probably not.
Unless it goes morbid time.
Right. But let's hope not. Let's actually, rather, let me rephrase. Let's hope it has more success than Morbius did on its re-release.
That's not saying much.
I aim for any bar, no matter how low. As long as I can step over it and don't trip over it, I'm fine. So.
Exactly. Set your bars low, you'll never be disappointed.
Yeah, exactly. I actually, so I got my hair cut yesterday, and I was talking to the
The barber?
Yeah, but there's a term, I can't remember what it is, but yeah, we'll go with barber.
Hair cutting person?
Yeah, hair cutting
Is that
person.
more scientific?
Yeah, we'll use the scientific term. And I was telling her, I'm like, this is one of my favorite lines, is, I am a optimistic pessimist.
Mm-hmm.
Which may sound like a contradiction, but my view is like this. The positive, the best part about being a pessimist is I'm either right or pleasantly surprised. There's literally no downside. So, the optimistic side of pessimism, everybody. There you go.
There you go.
If you wanted a little philosophy.
A glass half full pessimist.
Yeah, a little philosophy that I'm sure nobody asked for or wanted.
Speaking of having to be a pessimist, the Hulk.
Yes. So, the Hulk. Thank you for bringing us back. So, we're going to talk about the Hulk here. What can we say about the Incredible Hulk?
He's incredible.
He is. He's also the Hulk. And at one time, he was considered to be the most popular Marvel Marvel character and property. He made the most money. He was one of the best selling. He was so popular, in fact, that former most popular wrestler in the world and now disgraced Hulk Hogan actually got his name and had to sign some kind of agreement. I don't know the details about, but with Marvel to use the name Hulk.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of a
fact.
little fun fact there. And obviously, if you don't know the story about Hulk Hogan, long story short, he got caught saying some really racist shit on tape.
No, not an old white guy saying racist shit.
Yeah, that never happens. Thank God. And he's since, of course, kind of made this. I'm going to call it a non-apology tour. Because he didn't actually apologize, at least as far as I know.
An old white guy not apologizing?
Yeah, that too, right? But he really did, basically try to go and kind of get his good name and his good image back. It was a long story, but anyway, so that's kind of a little fun connection. Is at one point most wrestling fans know the name Hulk Hogan. In fact, most non-wrestling fans will probably know the name Hulk Hogan.
Yep, and Hulk Hogan, if you're listening, I meant every word.
Yeah, right. I'm going to second everything he just said, but please don't kill me.
I meant every word, brother.
Yeah, brother. We'll have to do a wrestling podcast at some point. Given that
only if it's 90s wrestling.
Hey, that's still wrestling.
Or early 2000s, but anyway.
Yeah, but regardless.
Speaking of wrestling, the Hulk wrestles.
Yeah, the Hulk does wrestle, actually. And in fact, he wrestles in this movie with Abomination quite a bit.
Yes.
So for those that don't know, let's kind of do a little bit of world building and set the stage for this movie. Iron Man had come out already, and I believe it was a couple months earlier. I want to say that the Incredible Hulk came out in I want to say it was June or July, and Iron Man was I think in May of 2008.
Was it that quick?
Yeah, it was because it was basically you had Iron Man and I think Incredible Hulk released in the same year. I think it was 2008 for both, and then you had Iron Man 2. Thor, Captain America, and the Avengers, and that all happened in 2010, 2011 for both of those.
And then 2012.
2012 for the
Avengers.
That. Yeah. I think that's how it is. Maybe it was 2009, but I think The Incredible Hulk was released in 2008.
I think 8, but
yeah,
I didn't think it was 2 months, but I don't know.
But yeah, it was pretty close. Because
we had a device about yay big. We could look stuff up on it.
We could. Do you want to do that real quick?
I can.
So... anyway, we'll get that information. Again, we don't take notes. We don't do a lot of research or prep before. But basically, Iron Man had come out and was a huge success. That's the point we were trying to make. And Hulk was the second movie to come out. The difference, though, is that Hulk, his movie and film rights were kind of co-owned in some really weird agreement between Marvel and Universal Pictures.
Oh, yeah.
So, Universal was the one who distributed Hulk. And if you're wondering why there hasn't been a solo Hulk film since 2008 or 2009.
It was June 13th, 2008.
Okay, it was June. Yeah, I thought so.
Check what.
Yeah, because Iron Man also came out in 2008, I'm positive.
No, I know Iron Man did. I just, for some reason.
Okay, cool. I was right. Yay, I was right, everybody. And we got it recorded. Take that, people who say I'm never right.
Take that, Internet. Now I have proof.
Right? But then they're going to say I just edited it, so that's probably not as good proof as I would like. Oh, well. You can't win them all, right? Anyway, so, yeah, the Hulk came out after Iron Man's, big blockbuster success. I don't think that's an understatement at all. Hulk came out. And, to say that it didn't have Iron Man's success is probably the biggest understatement I will make on this podcast.
Yeah, it's pretty safe to say.
It did well, don't get me wrong, but... Obviously, it didn't do well enough because, as I mentioned, it is now the year 2022, and we have not had a solo Hulk movie since.
That is kind of crazy to think about. Iron Man was May 2nd, so it was only a month later.
Yeah, so it was a month and change.
Yeah, I swore it was 6 months or something.
Yeah, I remembered it was really close. I think the reason why is because it was two different distributors. It was Marvel for Iron Man, and then Marvel was involved with Hulk, but Universal was the distributor for it. I think that's the reason why. I also think it's safe to say they weren't expecting Iron Man to be the success it was.
No, that's probably why they let Universal distribute.
Yeah. Hulk. But either that or some kind of pre-existing agreement. But the way, and again, we don't know, we don't have the exact text of whatever agreement Marvel made with Universal over Hulk. But essentially it seems to boil down to this. That as long as Hulk is not the quote-unquote main lead, he can appear in any movie that Marvel wants him to. as a supporting character, but he can't be the quote-unquote lead character. And that's why, because Universal owns the rights to that. Mm-hmm. So there's actually a hilarious story we'll get into with Mark Ruffalo later about like how he was, when he first kind of got brought on, because for those that don't know, this Hulk movie did not star Mark Ruffalo. It was Edward Norton. And Ruffalo was brought in when Hulk was brought back for the Avengers in 2012. Mm-hmm. And when Ruffalo first came in, he was very excited. He's like, oh yeah, we can absolutely like work with Universal to get like a solo Hulk film. Like anytime he was asked about it initially. Oh, okay. Then flash forward a couple years later, and it was like, maybe we can work something out with them. And then I think it was like around the time Endgame came out, Ruffalo's answer to that question was, will there ever, the question being, will there ever be another Hulk solo film, was, I don't think Universal likes money. So that should kind of tell you, I guess, where things stand from a business perspective between Universal and with Marvel. Mm-hmm. And, even all this time later. But basically, we kind of touched on this a little bit with, like, Iron Man when we got into the discussion on Superman. But Hulk is a very problematic character to have in any sort of movie. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is because he is pretty much unkillable. He gets stronger when he gets angrier. And when you try to deal damage to him, he gets angrier. Yeah. And
you don't want to see him angry.
Yeah, he's a character that, while there's a lot of like potential there for like comic books, like talking about the different psyche between like Banner and Hulk, and how it affects like Betty Ross, Thunderbolt Ross.
In a long form content, you can totally dive into that psychological or deeper subjects. Yeah. But when you're trying to make a 2 hour, because I think movies were still about 2 hours back then. Nowadays they keep getting pushed. Yeah. But a 2 hour all contained story. Well, of course Hulk's just gonna beat the crap out of the dude. Yeah. And like that's the general story when they're going for the casual market.
Yeah. The issue really becomes, right, what can you do with the Hulk? He's almost never really in danger. Mm-hmm. By the nature of his characters. Like even if you attack Banner, like Hulk comes out and they make a reference to that multiple times in the comics, and even they make a very dark reference in Avengers when Ruffalo talks about how like he put a bullet in his mouth and the Hulk spit it out. And I'm like, wow, that was surprisingly dark, especially for the general theme of the Avengers up until that point. I think the only one that got close to that was, of course, Cap's movie, which was a World War II film. So, of course, you couldn't really avoid that. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, like, man, that was a pretty dark line for...
Well, I mean, Iron Man may or may not be getting tortured in the first one.
That is true, but, like, I guess as an audience, you never really are faced with the fact that he's going to die because it's his movie.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying.
But yeah, you're right. Like, that is another moment. But, it was for the most part, like, even, like, Thor and, Iron Man, the vast majority of those movies had the traditional Marvel quippiness and the humor that we all now know. But, it was a very dark moment in, what was supposed to be this, like, epic team-up. And it was only, like, kind of a one-off line that they never really explored further beyond that. Yeah. Well, unfortunately. And I think a lot of that has to do, of course, with, as we talked about, the limitations between Universal and Marvel's agreement for what Marvel can do with it.
Yeah, they don't want to go too deep into a side character, basically.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You're going to have to spread a story out through multiple movies, and it's just not good for the casual moviegoer.
Yeah, and to me, it's kind of jumping ahead to, like, the difference between, like, Ragnarok and where we find Thor and Hulk, not Thor, but Hulk and Banner in Infinity War and in Endgame, right? Where it's like, Hulk in Ragnarok had locked Banner up for, like, 2 or 3 years, something like that in universe, and then Banner comes out and he like spends his part of the movie like not wanting to transform back into the Hulk because he doesn't know if he'll be let out again, and then of course he makes the big play sacrifice where he ragdolls on the Rainbow Bridge, which is pretty funny, and but then of course when you see when Ragnarok ends, Hulk is Hulk and he's standing with Thor and the other Asgardians. Hulk promptly gets the crap beat out of him in, like, the opening scene of Infinity War.
Yeah. That was a powerful scene for Thanos.
Oh, yeah. Here's the best way to introduce a villain. You take the strongest Avenger, literally that's his nickname, much to Thor's chagrin.
I know. Well, especially, I mean, to kind of back it up, in Avengers,
Yeah.
the whole puny god.
Yeah, puny god, where he literally beats the shit out of Tom Hiddleston's Loki.
Yes.
Like, boom, 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 boom. And then he does the same thing to Thor in Ragnarok. So, yeah, that's a good point.
They did build up Hulk before, so
Yeah.
yes, they made sure we knew he's, the strongest Avenger, and then Thanos just completely wipes the floor with him so bad, he just leaves Banner out on his own.
Yeah, with only one Infinity Stone, by the way. And yeah, Hulk literally does not show up again. Like, Banner tries to get him to come out several times, and he does not. And,
which may or may not be just, plot armor for Thanos.
Probably.
But still, nonetheless.
Yeah, but it is something that, again, it's like, Tanner, stop. Stop. Sorry. Tanner, no. No, not right now. Tanner!
Yeah, I thought...
No, Tanner. Hang on. We're going to cut right here. Alright, sorry about that, everybody. That's probably going to be a pretty abrupt cut because I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, Tanner decided he wanted to dig for gold in my office while we're recording. And
your mic is sensitive.
Yeah, it's extremely sensitive. So we'll be fixing that hopefully in the future. But he's settled down. He's lying down now. So.
But I did. Let's see. We were talking about Hulk and Thanos. Thanos just utterly destroying him. May or may not have plot armor.
Yeah.
Which is why he never comes out again in Infinity War.
They don't really do a good job of explaining it in the movie.
Yeah, that's why I feel it's possibly lazy writing. I mean,
yeah, so
I'm not disagreeing with the fact they did show Thanos just wiping him handedly.
So there's been some interviews from the writers of Infinity War about Hulk because the general consensus, at least online, was that Hulk was afraid of Thanos. He'd never gotten the snot beat out of him before quite like that.
Yeah.
And Hulk, as we saw in Ragnarok, basically had the mind of a toddler. He was like a little kid.
Yeah.
And, so naturally people would think, oh, you're giving Hulk, you want Hulk to be afraid of Thanos. That's why he's not coming out again. It's like, makes total sense to me. According to the writers, no, that's not it at all. And it's like, okay, well, that's definitely not the impression you gave.
So what was the apparent reason?
According to them, these interviews it was because Hulk was tired of being used by Banner to solve all his problems. Which is not really ever explored anywhere.
Okay, I like the other one better.
I do too. And again, it's like, I can buy that, but in a movie, it's important to show, not tell. And they didn't show that anywhere, at least in my opinion.
Yes, I mean, it's a visual medium.
Yeah, so, for me, I just think it's not necessarily lazy writing. I think it's just bad writing.
Well, I was trying to give him the benefit.
Yeah, no, same here. But I'm going to be honest, and I just think that, and again, this might tie into the limitations. Like, could you imagine if they could actually have done a more detailed solo Hulk movie where they could have dedicated more time to him?
Yeah, then they easily could have made that the real reason.
But the other thing that kind of reinforces that is that when we next see Hulk after the 5-year time skip, he and Banner have fused into Professor Hulk.
Yeah,
and we haven't really gotten an explanation for that yet. And granted, this is being recorded before She-Hulk comes out, and Banner is supposed to appear in She-Hulk.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, anyway, so sorry, that's going to be another awkward cut. My dog decided to get up and do it again. I don't know why he does that. I really don't. But anyway, yeah, so that's kind of the complications with Hulk, right? Is that because he's always a side character, throughout the entire MCU, we don't really get a lot of time with him outside of when he's interacting with another character. And it's, again, I don't know what the agreement is, but it unfortunately has made Hulk, in probably the entire MCU, at least out of the main core cast of the Avengers, the most underdeveloped and the one with the most questions. But, so that's again talking, Hulk's future. But let's actually talk about Hulk in the movie. So Edward Norton plays Bruce Banner, and, we won't really dive into the details, but essentially, he's trying to find a cure. He is meeting with different people with their blood. The military is chasing him, led by Thunderbolt Ross. Blonsky is one of the soldiers, and Blonsky is, just like everybody else in the MCU, wants to become a super soldier. Captain America's legacy. Captain America hasn't even been, hasn't even been introduced yet at this point in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
But, we will learn later that Ross and Blonsky were both interested in recreating the super soldier serum. That's what Banner was working on. That's what led to his accident that turned him into the Hulk. And
I do find it interesting, the Hulk, they tied it into Cap. I don't remember that totally being a thing in the comics.
Yeah, so it was more of a plot point they did later in, the Ultimate Universe.
Oh, okay.
And that sort of thing was basically that because Cap is basically retconned, right, to be, like, the world's first superhero,
mm-hmm.
that almost every, like, major, like, quote-unquote, like, super soldier research program was done to try and replicate the one that gave us Captain America.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting they or at least used that version of Hulk to tie it in and give him a common theme or starting place.
Yeah, well, especially because in the Ultimate Comics, Hulk literally eats people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he actually eats people.
So he's Venom?
Kinda, yeah. Like, Hulk is way more of a monster in the Ultimate Comics, or at least he was initially. In the Ultimate line. But yeah, it's one of those things where he's trying to find a cure. He gets Blonsky obviously gets turned into the Abomination, and they did have a cameo for the leader, who has literally never been addressed since. But what happens is, I can't remember the leader's actual name or his actor's name, unfortunately. It's been a long time since I've seen the Incredible Hulk movie.
I totally remember who the leader is.
So the leader, for those that don't know, is is a Hulk enemy. Like many Hulk enemies, he is tied into gamma radiation.
Oh, okay.
And the leader is basically a genius. He is green-skinned and has a big-ass brain. So he has a big-ass cranium. And in the Incredible Hulk movie, the dude he's working with is the leader to try and find a cure. And during like a kerfuffle, that dude gets a cut on his head, and then some of Banner's gamma mutated blood falls into his skull, and the last thing you see of the leader is like his head starts like swelling.
I think I kind of do remember that.
Yeah. So
I think I might have thought it was MODOK at first.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
I know him MODOK.
Yeah, and also CGI has come a long way since then.
Yeah.
Like the Hulk CGI, if you watch like the 2008 Hulk CGI, it has gotten so much better. It doesn't look
horrible, but
but it doesn't look like what we're used to. At the time, it was pretty cool, but now that we've got like Ruffalo Hulk and with like the high motion capture HD 440K, whatever it is, we've been spoiled. We really have. But eventually, Blonsky and Hulk fight because they realize that Blonsky is a huge threat now that he's this horrible abomination, and they break Harlem.
I mean, Hulk did use boxing fist cars, so I mean, not gonna lie, they had some awesome Hulk moments in the movie.
Yeah, and it's fun too because Blonsky ended up appearing in where did he make his cameo? I think it was in Shang-Chi.
Yeah, in Shang-Chi, the Abomination's fighting Wong.
Yeah, and they like rigged the fight or something.
I don't know if they rigged it or just their sparring partners.
Yeah, something, whatever it is. But
yeah.
Anyway, Wong. By the way, there's been a total side note, but since we mentioned Wong, he is like literally appearing in like everything in Phase 4, except for the Eternals. Yeah, so they're calling it.
The Eternals probably would have been better.
Probably with Wong. Yes. But then again, it would be hard to with the way that Benedict Wong plays Wong. It would be hard for anything he's in to be worse.
Huh. Well, I mean, there was already a lot going on in Eternals. So
that's true.
Too mad he wasn't in there.
But still, like so we're calling it Phase Wong. Is that agreed?
Phase Wong.
Yeah, Phase 4 is now Phase Wong.
Seems legit.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. Wong is a huge breakout character, and we'll talk about that in depth later, including the racist history of that character. But so Abomination would appear again in Shang-Chi, which was a cameo that they actually gave away in the trailer, which was, I thought, pretty disappointing. It would have been pretty fun
to actually see it
show up, because like outside of Banner, the only other Hulk-based character who's really appeared in the MCU up to this point was Ross. And he showed up again as, I think, the Secretary of Defense, or was he State? He's one of the cabinet secretaries for the president.
Something defense
in Civil War. And of course, now we won't probably see him a lot because, unfortunately, that actor got into some hot water over his behavior.
Oh, but of course.
Yeah, another old white guy, as you kind of said earlier. Unfortunately.
You had it coming, brother.
But anyway, so yeah, the Hulk, due to this agreement with Universal, and a lot of their characters have had very limited screen time.
Mm-hmm.
And as a movie, The Incredible Hulk has probably I would argue, the least impact on the greater MCU. The only one that I think competes with it, at least as of this point, is Iron Man 3. And that's not because Iron Man 3 is bad, it's because literally everything that happens in Iron 3 ends up not mattering for the greater MCU.
Yeah, it was really weird.
Yeah. And we'll talk about Iron Man 3 when we get there, but
yeah.
The Incredible Hulk is definitely one of those films. I think it's safe to say that it is consistently ranked towards the bottom of the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
The other big one there that is pretty much universally agreed on is Thor: The Dark World.
Mm-hmm.
Some would probably put Eternals down there. I wouldn't, but I know some do. And it's definitely, I would say, bottom 3. I'm pretty confident in saying it's probably bottom 3. And again, it's not a bad movie. I think even the worst MCU film isn't terrible.
Like Cars.
Yeah, kind of like Pixar.
Sorry, I've been watching a lot of Cars, guys.
Yeah, his son is a big Cars fan.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something that, with the Incredible Hulk, it's interesting because obviously they've done a lot with the character of Bruce Banner, but they've been severely limited, and it's going to be interesting now that they're bringing in She-Hulk, which is due to have its own Marvel TV series coming out. I think later this year. I want to say it's fall of this year. But and Banner's going to play a role in that for sure.
Yeah, so it'll be cool to see him. I feel these Marvel TV shows have been able to totally deep dive. You get more of a sense of the character.
Yeah.
Because even Hawkeye, he's Hawkeye and he does stuff, but I feel they were able to get into him and being a dad and stuff more than just the regular movies.
I've said this before, but out of all the Marvel TV shows that released last year, Hawkeye was probably my favorite. And if you had told me that going in, that when you're going up against Loki, WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and What If you had told me that out of those 5, Hawkeye would have been my favorite, I would have told you were crazy.
Uh-huh.
But I think that's a lot to do with Jeremy Renner and, of course, the introduction of Kate Bishop, who was a big role. And then, of course, the big surprise cameo at the end. That, I'm sure we'll talk about more. But, it just overall, Hawkeye was very well done. And I think to your point, you're right. This could be an opportunity to get a bit more Banner. I kind of doubt it, though, because I think they need to establish She-Hulk.
I'm not disagreeing, but it'll give him some spotlight.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with Hulk. But, again, it's been fascinating because I feel that overall, given the limitations we know of, I think that they've handled the character of Hulk and Bruce Banner pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Ruffalo, no disrespect to Edward Norton, who I think was a fine Banner.
I think he talked about Fight Club, so they had to take him out.
They had to. Yeah, it was a salary thing, I think.
I know. No, I think he was actually busy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but
I think he's the one that actually suggested Mark Ruffalo.
He did, yeah, but I think it was also pay as well.
Oh, okay.
Because, again, the limitations of the character with the contract status, that was a fine line to walk, and Norton probably wanted more money, and honestly, who could blame him, especially in hindsight, right? I think Norton was right.
Yeah.
And, but Ruffalo came in, and obviously he's killed it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, Hulk is not a character that, like I said, at one point he was one of the most popular, but Spider-Man, I think, has since long eclipsed him, and now, of course, X-Men and, even the Avengers, as a whole. Hulk is not necessarily what I think most people would look at now as, the greatest character, and I think a lot of that has to do with his crazy comic book history, where he's literally all over the map.
They try to make him really different, so the comic is different.
Yeah. But
then it just drastically changes the character.
Yeah, and he has one of the most, complicated, and kind of, kerfluffled backstories. I won't do a deep dive for anyone here.
Because wasn't there, the Immortal Hulk, where he was, a spawn of Satan or something, or,
Oh, yeah. That, there's been several different versions of Hulk, and, Hulk was originally gray, before they made him green. And then they later retconned it to there's actually a Gray Hulk who went by the name Mr. Fix-It for a while and was kind of like halfway between like the intelligence of like Hulk and Banner.
Yeah, because he was like a mob boss, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was street smart. I think he was a bouncer in Vegas.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so and then there was, you know, it was like, oh, his transformation was initially like by the moon. It was lunar cycle based, so he's like a werewolf type thing.
Werewolf Hulk.
Yeah, and then it was which complicates things because then you have Man-Wolf, who's a Spider-Man, a minor Spider-Man character, but nonetheless still an actual werewolf. And yeah, then of course, you know, you introduced like Hulk and Banner would like fuse to become Professor Hulk, and like in the 90s, Hulk had a TV show where there was 3 Hulks. There was the Green Hulk, there was, which is like Savage Hulk, there was Mr. Fix-It, and then there was Banner. And then they brought in like a third one. It was like all these Hulks are like different personifications, like Banner being having the shit beaten out of him by his father.
Yeah.
Yeah, the list goes on and on and on, but you know, basically it all comes down to like Banner is like a lot of super geniuses, suffers from pretty severe mental trauma, and you know, it basically goes back and forth like how powerful the Hulk is. Like there's a different version of Hulk that they literally call like World Breaker, which
does he break worlds by chance?
Yes. And he's actually so like powerful that he's like radiating like gamma energy, so you can't like approach him. And then like
he has reishi?
Essentially, and then like when he steps, like he literally puts cracks like in the earth.
Yeah. And
yeah, it's like the epitome of like Banner's like anger, which is like really weird given that it's like Hulk is that. And then of course you have Maestro, who a lot of people probably don't know, but he's a future Hulk who took over the world and has like this really long like Gandalf beard.
Oh, I've seen pictures.
Yeah. And then of course you have you know, World War Hulk, where Hulk was, you know, Hulk's intelligence has varied over the course of the comics. Banner's control has varied. His relationships with Betty, Thunderbolt Ross. You know, then they introduced Red Hulks and Red She-Hulks, and
every color gets a Hulk.
Yeah.
You get a Hulk.
Abomination and Leader, and just there's a whole list of things. And
there was what was it? Hulk and Agents of Smash.
Yeah, Hulk and Agents
of Smash. 5 different Hulks.
Yeah, and then they have I think they just got like I can never pronounce his first name, but it's like Adamus Cho, who's the son of Dr. Cho, and Dr. Cho who appears in Age of Ultron. She's the doctor who helps like heal Hawkeye with like the nanotechnology. And then inadvertently leads to creating Vision. But yeah, like her son, who's also like a super genius because there's like a million super geniuses. So yeah, I mean they've done a lot with Hulk in the comics, and his story is, even among like comics, it's really convoluted.
Yeah,
like
I feel his character almost changes the most, doesn't it?
It does. It feels that way, and you know, obviously, like I mentioned, he was like one of the big time sellers for a long time, so it makes sense that they would keep reintroducing him to different generations and adding new stuff. But in a lot of ways, he's kind of like the Superman of the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Which is funny because like Captain Marvel is kind of the Superman of the Marvel universe.
Like literally supposed to be.
Yeah, but
one of my favorite facts in that death battle with that Hulk versus Broly is they measured him banging someone so hard for like hours on end to measure his strength. Pretty great stat, I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, hey, that's a big shout out to a friend of the podcast, Chad James, who has indoctrinated me into Brandon Sanderson's work. So if you ever would like to know more about Brandon Sanderson's work in the Cosmere, hit up Chad.
Professor Chad motherfucking James.
Yeah, Professor Chad, and then as normal we have that motherfucking.
Of course.
I don't know why, but we do.
I don't know. It's been a running joke.
It has been. But
one of those jokes, I just know it started, and I don't remember where it started at.
Yeah, no, it's become like internet legend at this point.
Pretty much.
But yeah. So anyway, Hulk is, as we've talked about a lot, he's a complicated character. But I do think that even in his like limited time in the MCU, and we'll dive deeper into like certain, you know, things in as we continue on with this getting lost in the MCU series. You know, I do feel that Ruffalo has really taken the character and made it his own. And that's something to me that I think is just a testimony to how great of an actor Ruffalo is. how great the writing has been. Mostly, there's been some really weird stuff. We talked about it already, but like that was the whole like romance with Natasha. That it didn't quite come out of nowhere, but like a lot of people said. But
no, it wasn't nowhere, but it was really weird.
It was a very weird thing to.
It felt almost shoehorned, like not out of nowhere, but nonetheless shoehorned.
Yeah, it was something that like. There's some problems with that. We'll talk about that when we get to Age of Ultron. But
one thing I do want to talk about for Hulk is it established the ongoing memery of Stan Lee cameos.
It did,
because we had a Stan Lee cameo in Iron Man, but this established it being a thing.
Yeah.
Which honestly, what was a Stan Lee? I remember Stan Lee and Hulk, but what was Stan Lee in Iron Man?
So in Iron Man,
he was at the red carpet. He just said hi.
I think and then I think in this. Was it the second one? Yeah, I think it was the second one he gets mistaken for Hugh Hefner. But yeah, he's like on the red carpet.
Yeah, when Iron Man's going into whatever gala.
And so Stan Lee's actually
it was really minor, but I loved him in Hulk.
Yeah, because he was in the coffee shop and I think he got poisoned.
No, he bought a soda.
That's what it was. It was tainted with his gamma blood.
Yes, and he drinks it. He just goes all crazy, and they do acknowledge that there's some like demon like breaking stuff.
Yeah.
So,
but so Stan Lee though, not to
which we miss you, Stan Lee.
We do, but to kind of clarify your point, he had been making cameos in his movies and works prior to that.
Yeah.
But this established in the MCU.
Yeah, as far as the MCU was gonna get it,
and obviously, his last cameo, his last recorded one, I believe, was in, I think it was in Endgame. But
because I don't think it was in Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
No,
I don't think he made it to Far From Home, unfortunately. I think his last one was Endgame, but I'll never forget Stan Lee's cameo where the first movie after his death was Captain Marvel. And
what was it in that one?
He is like Marvel, like I think Captain Marvel's looking for the scroll like on the train. And she like pulls down his newspaper, and it's Stan Lee.
Oh yeah.
And Brie Larson just smiles at him, and knowing that he had just passed away, like that scene hit way harder than I think that the writers intended it to.
Yeah.
But it was super
I remember it
great.
hitting hard, but yeah.
Yeah. And it was just like, oh, it's Stan. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think he still had a couple more cameos.
He had recorded, I think, for both Infinity War and Endgame, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that and unfortunately, I did find out that he never did get to see Endgame, which is really unfortunate because it was the culmination of his
that MCU experience.
Yeah. He did not unfortunately get to watch a advanced copy.
That's nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do think it established that. More end credit scenes, so between Iron Man obviously started it, but Hulk beat it into our brain to make sure to stay till the end.
It did. And fun fact about that is that that end scene that they recorded was so confusing they actually recorded an entire short to explain it.
Which one was that one?
So the scene is Ross is at a bar, and Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark comes in. And it's like, I need to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative. And it's like, to recruit, you have an asset we want. And it was really confusing because it was like, in the plot of the movie, Hulk was gone.
Yeah.
And they had Blonsky. And it was like, well, it's for Hulk, why do we want it to be...
Yeah, it sounds like he's wanting Abomination.
Yeah, so they literally created a Marvel short, which features Clark Gregg, Phil Coulson, and I can't remember the actor's name, but it was Jasper Sitwell, sitting in a coffee shop, and they had to explain, it's called The Consultant, and it's like, it turns out that like the S.H.I.E.L.D. World Council wants Blonsky rather than Hulk. Like they were trying to paint Blonsky as a war hero and Hulk as the criminal, which it fits Hulk lore.
Not only Hulk lore, but then who's the one that escaped? Hulk.
Yeah. But of course, it's ignoring the fact that Blonsky is imprisoned in a secret base, like that they're cushing a cover up. And it's
know that? I know that. They don't.
Well, and it's funny because it's like, what, they want the Abomination? He really doesn't like it when you call him that.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a line in The Consultant, and it's like, so basically they have to explain, like, Coulson and Sitwell are going, like, they want Blonsky. We know we don't want Blonsky. We know Hulk's the good guy. We know Blonsky's the bad guy. You know, so it's like, how do we sabotage this? Like, send this without sabotaging it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, we have to send someone who's egotistical, who would annoy Ross to the point that Ross would refuse to hand over Blonsky to her custody. And then it pans over and it's Tony Stark. And nice. It's like, oh, and then it flips back and it's like, how did it go? Oh, well, it worked. Ross tried to throw him out of the bar, and Stark responded by buying the whole bar and to schedule it for demolition. So, that end credit scene was so confusing, they actually had to release a short called The Consultant to explain it. And it's like, yeah, okay, that happens.
Yeah.
That is not the worst end credit scene ever. I think that distinction belongs to Morbius.
I did not watch Morbius at all yet.
God, okay.
Have you morbid?
I have morbed, and I regretted it immensely.
I still haven't watched Sonic 2 yet, so I haven't morbed yet.
Yeah, watch Sonic 2. Yeah. Don't waste your time with Morbius. Sony, I'm convinced Sony does not know how to make a film, like a good superhero film,
I know,
without Kevin Feige.
Yeah, because even Venom was okay.
Mm-hmm.
Venom 2, I'm like,
Venom 2 sucked. Venom 2 sucked. Which is terrible because I like Tom Hardy and I like Woody Harrelson. I'm like, how do you fuck that up? They found a way.
Yeah, it just was so awkward.
It really was. And, we've talked about this a lot. Both of us are big Spider-Man fans, and we will go in detail about our fandom when we reach Captain America Civil War and Spidey gets introduced into the MCU. But the whole premise of Venom is flawed to start because Venom does not work without Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And Eddie Brock is not a hero. Never has been. The best explanation I've heard for Venom, which made the movie better but also explains my sheer dislike of it, is it's not actually a superhero movie, it's a romance movie.
I guess.
It's a romance movie between Eddie Brock and Venom. And I'm like, I don't know who it was who said that. I think it might have been Ali Blonderps, who is no longer Blonderps. It's Ali the, gaming hag or something like that. Mm-hmm. But anyway, shout out to Ali. Great streamer. But I think she was the one who put it that way. I think that she was the one who said it. It's because she's a huge Tom Hardy fan. She loves Venom, so it's like, hey, no hate, but I hated that movie. I absolutely hated it.
There was really good parts, at least in the first one.
Oh, for sure, and even the second one has a couple really good moments.
A couple, but I feel the first one had enough to make it okay.
I liked Harrelson's portrayal of Cassidy, for sure, but doesn't mean it was a good movie.
Yeah, I feel they wrote his character weird. I don't know. Mm-hmm. There was just weird vibes. I think he did good as Cassidy, but they just didn't write it very well.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's what you can say about the Venom movies, period. I think that's a Sony movie problem, honestly.
I know. Well, that's because Morbius came out on April 1st, and I'm like, the joke is it's gonna suck.
That's not the joke.
Well, it was to my wife, because she was excited to see it, but we never did watch it.
Yeah.
Welcome to having kids.
Yeah, well, you probably saved yourselves a very confusing movie. Let me just sum it this way. The most epic scene in the movie is Morbius does a Hadouken with bats.
Yeah, I heard something about that.
Yeah.
I think Grayson maybe posted it.
Yeah. Well, Grayson saw it I don't know how many times.
Well, that too, but he did post it on Twitter.
The only person I know who likes that movie unironically, or at least who's really gone all in, is Platypus. A Platypus on Twitch. That has become his recurring gag.
I mean, he's full Morbin, I guess.
Yeah, he's all in on Morbius. I don't know if it's serious or not. I don't know him that well, which is weird because I dated his neighbor, but that's another story. Anyway, we're getting way off the board when it comes to Hulk. So
yeah, we are.
Let's see. We've been going for about 45 minutes, so I think it's time for us to kind of wrap up.
It's up to you because we do have to cut some Tanner stuff.
We do, but I figure we can.
Yeah, no,
we can kind of go into final thoughts about Hulk, and that'll probably give us to wrap up.
Yep.
So, So what's your opinion on Hulk as a character, both in the MCU and outside of it?
So I mean, in the MCU, yeah, that first movie. Are we talking first movie or just as a whole?
As a whole, if you want.
Okay.
We've covered pretty much everything in this podcast.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, as a whole, I love him as a side character. Probably because he hasn't had an opportunity to shine. or just the Hulk, like Superman, can be kind of boring because there's no actual conflict.
Yeah.
Unless, if they do a deeper dive into the psychology of Hulk.
Yeah.
Which I think they tried to do in that first, or the 2005 Hulk movie.
Yeah, it was 2003.
Or 3.
And that movie also sucked.
It did suck, but I do think they tried to go more into the dark psychological side.
They did. If I remember correctly from that movie, the villain in that was his father.
Yeah, and I remember him tearing apart 3 dogs, and I thought that was really weird and scary.
Yeah.
I was also young in 2003.
Also, best way to make a heel, have them kill the pet.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to make a bad guy...
Have you seen John Wick?
Yes. No, I mean, you do not kill John Wick's dog.
That was my favorite part. I don't know why. I was so late into John Wick.
Yeah.
And me and Haseo finally just decided to stream it one day.
Uh-huh.
And we were watching it, and we just started busting up laughing when there's this huge mob boss. And it's like, what do you mean? He did what? He killed a dog. Okay, whatever. It was John Wick's dog. And no! His only response, oh. Like, he just knew.
Yeah.
It's this huge mob boss, and then he goes and beats the shit out of his son.
Yeah.
But it's like, he just was like, oh.
Yeah.
And that's it. He just knew he was in trouble.
Dead. Yeah, he was dead. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to Hulk. I love what they did, like him and Thor, like their buddiness. Like,
yeah, they're best frenemies.
Yes, because like the original Avengers, like that scene where Hulk just punches the shit out of
Oh,
Thor.
that was so
like,
great.
At the end.
Yeah, so they take down this giant like Jitari worm.
Yeah.
And then they're both like sitting there, and they're like panning, and they're like, "Yeah, we did it! Like, way to go!" And then it's out of nowhere, boom!
Yeah, and Hulk or Thor just flies off the screen. Yeah. So just like they almost used him as like comedic relief in some scenes.
They did,
which I thought was pretty great.
Puny God.
Yeah, the whole puny God.
Listen to me, you ingrate. I am a god, and I will not be boom, 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 boom,
and
boom.
he just totally ragdolls poor Loki.
Yeah, man, Loki he can't catch a break, man. But
so, yeah, I like that. I think it'd be interesting if they could get properly behind a solo Hulk film.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like what they did with the character. I do like that he's at least able to kind of be in like side parts of different films.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we don't get a solo Hulk film, but we get our Hulk fix every couple movies.
Yeah, it's. I think just to kind of add on to that is I feel that they've done a good job of like moderation with the Hulk, because again, like we talked about, he does kind of have the Superman problem where he's so super powerful. It's like there's very few threats, but they basically used him to establish what a threat Thanos was immediately in Infinity War, which, again, I know a lot of people weren't happy about that, but it's like, you gotta admit, like, if the purpose was to make Thanos feel like a threat, that's the way you do it.
Yeah.
I want to echo what you said. I love the comedic timing. I love the fact that Ruffalo is so willing and able to put himself in just hilarious moments,
Another hilarious one was with the Hulkbuster.
Oh, yeah.
Sleep. Yeah. Just beating the crap out of Hulk's face.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they found a good way. Marvel has found a good sense of humor, and the Hulk does seem to be around that a lot. Like, say what you want about, like, the really kind of random Natasha Banner pairing, but her trying to flirt with Banner in that like bar scene at the beginning of Age of Ultron was hilarious.
Yeah, that was funny, and I almost thought she was just messing with them more than anything.
Yeah, right. And then it was like, no, she's actually serious. And it's like, oh, shit. And then Cap comes over and gives his Cap speech, because Cap has to have like at least 2 speeches in every movie he's in.
Well, isn't it in his contract?
I'm pretty sure it is, but I mean, he's really good at them.
Yeah. Chris Evans is like, I need 2 Cap speeches.
Right. But, then it's like, another scene from Age of Ultron 2 is like when they're trying to lift Thor's hammer, and he was like trying to make fun of it, and just like, no one's laughing. It's like, I
think they all got scared, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know if it was scared, because I think they've all come to trust the Hulk at that point.
Oh, okay.
But it was more like they're just kind of looking like, what are you doing? like, but, Ruffalo is great, and then like, even when he gets, what is it? It's like when Thor shows up. Oh, you are so screwed now! He like opens up the hatch of the Hulkbuster, and
Yeah, just kind of enforcing that, like, best frenemies.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like it's that kind of almost like buddy cop almost relationship that they develop, and again, like I don't think it's safe to say that like the Thor character, Hemsworth wasn't happy with it, the fans were bored of it, Dark World was not great, even his role in Age of Ultron was kind of like cut. There was some important scenes with Thor that got cut from that movie, and I think it's safe to say that like by kind of exploring this more comedic relationship and having someone like Banner to bounce off of, or Hulk, really helped with that. It was a tag team effort, and of course, upcoming, this podcast probably won't be released until after it's come out. But at the time of this recording, Thor: Love and Thunder hasn't come out yet, and the direction of that seems to be very similar vibes to Ragnarok.
Yes, which I'm very excited because Ragnarok was one of my favorite MCU movies.
I think most people would probably rank it in, if not their top 3, then top 5. It's probably unequivocally one of the most universally beloved films.
I have an easy top 3. I'd have to go through the list. It could be the top.
Yeah, it's up there for sure. It's definitely one of the better ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, and outside of comics, I've always really liked Hulk, but he's never been my favorite. I grew up where Hulk's popularity, his peak had kind of passed.
Yeah.
And, even like the Hulk animated cartoon wasn't that good in the 90s. Like X-Men the animated series and Spider-Man the animated series, Batman the animated series, they were just better than the Hulk cartoon from that time.
No, easy. And then, all the Hulk video games pretty much sucked around then.
Yeah.
Especially because when they try to do, like, level progressing, so it's like, okay, so you're this weak little Hulk boy that dies real quick. It's like,
it's like, well, that goes
really
against Soul.
Weird in the game.
But then if you make him too strong, then it becomes too easy.
Yeah,
so Hulk is a problematic character. He's hard to work around.
Yeah,
and
even in video games they have a hard time.
Yeah, the MCU I think has done a good job with it, relatively speaking. I'm not saying it's been perfect. We've already talked about some of the criticisms, but it is what they've done with him has been, I think, pretty good. I think it's about the best that most people could ask for. And yeah, so anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
I do want to say, like, I like Ruffalo. I think really did step into Hulk, the Hulk shoes or the Banner shoes or all the above.
Yeah,
very well in the first Avengers movie. And it would be really hard to see Edward Norton like as Hulk right now.
I agree. I think kind of on that.
Yeah, because you were saying he made it his own, but like he just totally killed it. And not that Edward Norton did bad in that first Hulk.
No, but I also think Norton wasn't given nearly the material to work with. And I think that ties into the limitations of the character, and honestly, almost being a side character, I think in many ways has helped Hulk a lot.
Yeah, because then Ruffalo doesn't get too burnt out per se because he's not in every single movie.
Yeah.
Or at least like doesn't have like 3 Iron Man movies before like.
And then like 4 Avengers movies.
Yeah, and it's just
cameos in a Spider-Man movie, and
there wasn't a huge burnout like there was for other actors.
Yeah. So, and I mean, obviously Ruffalo, along with Hemsworth, is one of the 2 kind of big ones who's still around. Obviously Jeremy Renner's still involved, right?
But I feel Hawkeye was fairly minor at the start of the MCU.
Yeah, well, and Hawkeye also, but he's still been involved in a lot. Someone pointed out like every time Hawkeye's present, the Avengers win, and when he loses, when they lose, he's not there. Hawkeye, most powerful Avenger.
Clearly, that's obviously what that means.
Yeah, but and then of course when he's it's again just time and time again. It's like Hawkeye is basically like he's undefeated in the MCU, which is pretty crazy. Like he's never really suffered. Which is funny because the character Hawkeye has obviously suffered a lot, but like as far as like fights go, he's like almost never lost. It's pretty funny. But it's but it's Ruffalo still around, and I don't know what his future is going to be moving forward, but he did appear in the end credits for Shang-Chi. He's obviously going to be appearing in She-Hulk, which makes sense because of how tied in those 2 are together. They're literally cousins, for those that don't know. Jennifer Walters, I think, is her name. She's Bruce Banner's cousin in the comics. And, it's something, for me that I'm very excited and interested to see, what the future is, because Ruffalo has been a delight, despite the fact that he, along with Tom Holland, cannot be trusted with, like, any secrets in the MCU, because they will spoil them.
At least Tom Holland's, young.
Yeah.
What's Ruffalo's excuse?
Ruffalo doesn't have an excuse. But anyway, So I think with that being said, we'll wrap up this episode. Shoshima, again, thank you very much. Where can they find you?
I am on Twitter at Zachary1016, ZACKERY1016.
All right, and you can find me at Shenzo the Lost on Twitter, here on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on a podcast form, you can find me on Twitch. So please remember to like, follow, and subscribe. And please give a 5-star rating on anywhere you're listening to this podcast. It would help us out a lot. If you're not so inclined, though, hey, no worries. But never hurts to ask, right?
Yeah, I mean, the worst they can do is say no.
Yeah, pretty much. So anyway, that's going to wrap up this episode of the Lost One Podcast. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye, nerds.
Bye-bye.